the proposed MLB salary cap and salary floor that Major League Baseball at least proposed yesterday. Jesse Rogers was the first to break the news. Major League Baseball proposed a hard salary cap to union officials today as part of the next CBA, sources tell ESPN. The salary floor for teams beginning in 2027 would be set at $171.2 million, which includes player benefits, with the ceiling at $245.3 million. The Guardians' payroll right now is in between $80 and $90 million. Bull, two-part question. One, how does this impact the Guardians? And two, will those numbers, the floor and the ceiling, be something that you think the players' union would ever be willing to accept?
No. The players' union, well, let me rephrase that. The only way if that got accepted or anything close to that, it would be after a year-long lockout. That's the only way. Maybe 2 years. I don't know. Right now, the players, there's no way that the majority of players are going to agree to a salary cap, although I believe that this system would benefit more players than it would hurt.
I agree.
The superstars rule the roost, and the current system favors the superstars. So if all the minimum salary players, the pre-arbitration players, think it clearly, they might go for something like this, but that's not going to happen. So there's so many angles to this. Obviously, this would be great for baseball. It would be great for Cleveland fans, Milwaukee fans, Tampa Bay fans, Pittsburgh fans. It also tells you what a joke it is that these teams don't spend more, because clearly they can spend more because they're willing to go to 100. Now, I know this includes additional revenue sharing on TV money, but they're already doing some of that.
But this is all of it. This would be all of it.
Okay, but it's not $100 million more per team, I don't think.
I don't know. I don't know the percentages, but that was my first reaction too. Is how suddenly are the teams going to get to 170 when they cry poor all the time? I do think it matters. I'm kind of surprised that the owners already at this point agree that they're going to throw all the TV money into one pot. Like that's.
Let me tell you something. From a PR standpoint, the owners are on point.
They nailed it.
And the owners, I am a huge union guy.
Yeah.
Everybody knows I'm a liberal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge union guy. Everyone in my family's been teachers. I've always been pro-union. I always will be pro-union. Always.
Jimmy Hoffa.
But in this case, what I care about is two things. What's best for the sport, and most importantly, what's best for the fans. And clearly, this owner's proposal is best for the fans. The players' proposal's a joke. It was ridiculous. And I got to give the owners credit. You know folks, you know me. You know I don't like giving owners credit. I hate billionaires, basically. Not all of them, but a lot. The fact that the floor is that high, I was shocked.
Well, at 171,
Shocked.
at 171, when I seen that, I said, okay, so that is how many more money? That's almost 190 more million than what the Guardians are spending right now.
Yeah.
If that 171 hits, the transfer of powers will be happening very quickly, because how do you get from that to where you are today?
Yeah.
By 2027? No. So
think about the advantage. First of all, obviously this would benefit all the teams that don't currently have a payroll that low, or that high, and generally. But the first few years, it would be a massive advantage for teams like Cleveland and Tampa, because not only are they forced to spend money, but the teams that are spending would have to cut payroll over a few years.
Yeah, they would smooth this. Well, first of all, it's not going to be this. It's never the first offer.
No.
So I don't know what the final product is.
But you got to be shocked that it was that high.
It was great. I thought it was great.
Yeah, great.
And I'm Mr. Capitalist.
Yeah.
Make every dollar you can.
Yeah.
So that would make me against cap. But in this instance, I am for a cap. But because I've said this before, there's more distrust and animosity in baseball than any other sport, and I think it's the lack of a cap.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
But it is funny, like if you're the players union, why don't you come back and say, okay, well, if you guys are willing to share all the money, then why do we need a cap?
It's a fair question.
It's a very fair question.
But ultimately, they don't the owner. I don't even know if the players want that, because then the big market clubs won't spend and the bottom won't be forced to spend.
That is a great point.
If they fully shared money, but think about this: if they fully shared money, the top teams wouldn't spend as much.
Correct.
Automatically, and the lower teams would not necessarily spend more. They certainly wouldn't have to. And I don't buy that teams like Cleveland and Pittsburgh would spend significantly more, even with the revenue sharing.
If your floor you're proposing is 170, right?
Yeah.
And you guys, if that's your proposal as a group, when that means that the guys that are spending 80, why aren't you spending more now?
Right.
Because they're going to claim the Dodgers and the Yankees TV contracts allow them to spend more than what the Guardians get on their pittance of a television contract. But when you throw all of the TV contracts into one pot,
right, and you
divide them equally,
so why we need a captain?
That's what I said.
It's shocking to me that like the owners of the Dodgers, Yankees, Cubs
would go for this.
Mets, Red Sox, Phillies would go for this, because I don't see any. I think in the long run this benefits the sport and will be better for everybody, but in the short term, they're going to take a hit, those teams. And I don't know if they're going to make that money up ever.
Number one, I think there could be a cap. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a hard cap. It's going to be like the NBA cap, the NFL cap. They're soft caps. They're not hard caps.
Right.
But
baseball has that right now. Now it's an extremely soft cap.
Yeah.
Cap. Maybe they find a spot in between, a harder cap, but not completely.
Can somebody explain this to me? Yeah. Okay, so do we know who voted which way? Because obviously, if this is the owner's proposal, that means that includes all the major top teams like the Dodgers. Do we know that they voted for or against this?
They couldn't have put out this proposal unless 3/4 of the owners were in favor. And there's reason, like the big market owners probably, I would think, wouldn't like this because they're going to lose money, at least initially. And teams like the Pirates and Guardians, I don't know that those owners want to be forced to spend $170 million.
I've spoken to people who have seen the books for every team.
Yeah.
Who insist the Pirates and Guardians make more than the Dodgers and Yankees because they just take all the revenue sharing
they net more.
And they put it in their pocket.
Yes, right.
So maybe this would be why the bigger market teams would help balance it. Plus, there's the fact that franchise valuation, this is going to sound silly, franchise valuations have kind of flattened a little bit.
Yeah.
Because what do business owners want? They want cost certainty. They want to know what their spend is going to be every year. And they don't know that in baseball.
Yeah.
So if it's more in balance, if you have cost certainty, if you know what your outgoing cash flow is going to be, then there's a belief that will help increase sale prices of these teams. Now, the Padres just sold for what, like $4 billion?
Yeah.
So what are we talking about here?
Right. Yeah.
But when you've got that, if you can get $6 billion for it, you want 6 instead of 4.
And plus, Major League Baseball at some point in the next few years is going to expand.
Yes.
Those expansion fees can go up even more.
They're going to go right to the pocket of the owners.
Right. You're going to add 2 teams, probably go to 8 divisions of 4 teams.
Yeah.
Sometime in the next 5 years is my guess. This is fascinating. It's not going to be they're so far apart, and as you said, the animosity couldn't be worse between both sides. But I'll tell you, I think this commissioner, as much as he irritates me at times, has done a lot of positive things for the game.
I agree.
The game's in a really good place. If we got the owner's proposal without a work stoppage, which is probably impossible.
Yes.
It would be great for baseball. And Zach Meisel said this morning on the Ultimate Guardian show. In football and basketball, especially in football, but pretty much in basketball too, we rarely talk about the market.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? We don't talk about that. Maybe a little bit in basketball. We don't in football. We don't. The
we
Browns
don't in basketball either. Oklahoma City and San Antonio.
Right, that's true.
2 best teams in the
Browns
NBA.
have never sucked because they play in Cleveland. They've sucked because they've had bad management. Right?
They spend more than anybody.
Right. We've seen in recent years, as you said, in basketball, like all these big, small market teams, it doesn't matter. Everybody spends about the same, right?
There's about a $60 million gap between the Cavs and the Nets, right, Mike? I think the Nets are the lowest team. It's like a $60 million.
And that's partly because the Nets just stink right now.
But $60 million is
not much.
Not much.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. So in baseball, the Dodgers payroll is over $300 million. The Guardians is under $100 million. And you could say, well, look, the Guardians compete. And yes, they do. But here's what's happened, right? Why is Guardians attendance spotty? And I don't know what it's been. I haven't really looked at it yet this year.
It's around 20,000 a game so far this year.
Yeah, which is, is not terrible, but it's not good. Because it's the cumulative effect. There are still diehard baseball fans who can't get over CC Sabathia and Cliff Lee getting traded 20 years ago. It's the accumulation of losing, and I know you're not losing Jose, but this franchise has lost every great player besides Jose Ramirez for 30 years.
Yeah.
Yep. And this system would change that. Now, you wouldn't be able to keep every guy, but you'd be able to, wouldn't we feel differently? You already know that there's a decent chance that 3 years from now or 4 years from now, we're talking about trading Travis Pizzana, talking about trading Chase DeLauder. We don't have those conversations in football.
Correct.
Right? We don't have those conversations in basketball. They happen in basketball because players force their way, but it really has nothing to do with what city they're playing in.
But wouldn't this also give other teams that they compete against for low payrolls? Wouldn't they have the opportunity to get those players too? Say, for instance, I'm a free agent.
Yeah.
Before, I know I can go to the Yankees or whatever the case may be, but now the Rays can offer the same amount of money as the Guardians.
Well, maybe not the same, but
relatively
closer.
It gives me more.
And initially, remember, even if they say to the big market teams, okay, you got 4 years to get under the payroll number, they still, the big free agents that come up in the next few years are not going to be options for the Dodgers and the Yankees.
Yeah, and that's why it's going to be a rub to figure this out. And
right.
When do you implement it? How far out do you go?
Right. There's a lot to figure out. Go ahead.
The NBA has done a really good job of incentivizing players to stay with their current teams.
Right.
And that's we're on step 1. That's step 17 of a cap system. But trying to incentivize players so that you don't have players, because you're right, we don't talk about market size, but there's been, how many times have we talked about the NBA? Everybody wants to go to LA, everybody wants to go to Miami. There's 3 destination markets that all the players want to go to. So that will still be a thing. The reason the NBA gets away with it is because they have unbelievable national TV deals.
Right.
And they split the money evenly.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if a team's in Memphis or
Right.
Oklahoma City,
Yeah.
because they're making so much money on the TV deal. The market size doesn't matter. That's not the case in baseball. They don't really have a great national TV deal. They all have these local deals, but now they're getting to the point, and you see this with the Guardians and this Guards TV thing, and baseball's trying to get to the point where they get all of these baseball contracts, where they get all these television contracts, they can bundle them together, and they can try and do what the NBA has done.
And with baseball, unlike football and basketball, you're playing when the weather's good. So the market, if the money didn't matter, the market would probably be even less of a factor than in those other sports.
Yeah.
Right.
Where it's Cleveland in April it stinks here, but the May through October it's gorgeous here.
And baseball's so long, I never quite got it. You plan from April to September, so. Where you live is inconsequential. You play every other day.
Yeah, right. It's not like you're hanging around the house.
You ain't going back to the crib for a week.
Yeah, right.
You on a bus or a plane, So to me, I think this is crazy. If I was low market teams and low payrolls, when they would tell me that date of when we had to get under a certain cap, I would be meager rations. I might actually only have minor league dudes. And be like, oh, go ahead, Yankees. You got to win every year. We don't got to win this year. We will pay minor leaguers, and then when so and so is available, we shall poach him for the highest on the market.
And I think there'd be even more incentive to sign young players, as we've seen with Connor Griffin and Pete Crow Armstrong and some of these guys.
Yeah.
And maybe the Guardians would be more likely to sign long-term extensions with Chase DeLauder and Travis Pizzana, guys like that earlier in their career. There is no downside to this system. If you're a Cleveland baseball fan, no downside.
No, I
this is
totally
this is
agree
great.
with that.
You want this. You're rooting for this.
Francisco Lindor is sort of the poster child that I always bring up for this. When you nail a draft pick, when you develop them, you should be able to. You should have every opportunity to retain him. If a guy doesn't want, if you didn't like a city and don't want to stay, you're not going to win that.
Yeah, but that wasn't the case.
That wasn't the case.
No.
But they did everything right. They
Yeah.
drafted him right. They developed him. He was a superstar in baseball.
Yeah.
And they had to trade him.
And last thing, to incentivize, you talk about wanting to incentivize players staying with teams.
Yeah.
You allow teams to go over the cap, kind of like basketball, to keep your own guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And find a way to do that.
That's what I'm saying.
And now you're golden.
It's not going to be a hard cap. There's no way it'll be a hard cap.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about who's going to run out of money first, the owners always have deeper pockets than the players.
That's right. The owners need to hold strong.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a lockout, but it has to happen, I think, because you need this system. It's going to be great for the
Oh,
game.
I don't think we're going to have baseball a year from now.
I think we could miss the whole year.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be that bad. I hate to say it, but I think it has to happen. All right.
Especially with the Guardians and where they're at with these young players.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Terrible timing.
Yeah.